An education outfit. Hello and welcome to IndiaPostLive.com, India's first live and interactive news conversation web TV. I'm Prachi Jatanya. An education outfit affiliated to the RSS, the Shiksha Sanskriti Utthan Nyas, has asked the Narendra Modi government for a total change in the education system and the NCERT textbooks. Is this an indicator of saffronization of our education system? Here's a report.
This is what many had feared was inevitable in the BJP-led Narendra Modi government. A relatively unknown RSS offshoot, Shiksha Sanskriti Utthan Nyas, has asked for a total revamp of the education system. It wants new textbooks and new teaching methods which promote modernity with an Indian base. The saffron outfit also wants all NCERT textbooks to be rewritten and patriotism to be promoted among children. One also cannot ignore HRD Minister Smriti Irani's recent announcement that ancient Hindu texts would be part of schooling curriculum. So, will all this mean an overhaul of the Indian education system in the shades of saffron?
And to give us more perspective on this conversation, we have here in the studio joining us live Mr. Dinanath Batra, who is the All India President of the Shiksha Bachao Andolan and himself an educationist. We also have Dr. Savita Jah Khan. She's an Assistant Professor of History at the Ramanujan College of DU. We'll get to them very soon. I'd actually thank both of them for being here in our studio at India Post Live. Welcome to the conversation. Batraji, what is your take? What exactly is the demand of the Shiksha संस्कृति उत्थान न्यास?
शिक्षा में मूलचूल परिवर्तन होना चाहिए। करिकुलम को बने हुए 10 साल हो गए। हर 5 वर्ष के बाद शिक्षा की जानकारी दुगनी हो जाती है, परंतु बच्चों को वो बासी जानकारी दी जा रही है और उनके मस्तिष्क में इस दृष्टि से सड़ान पैदा हो रही है। पुस्तकें और उनके अंदर जो सामग्री है वो इस ढंग की होनी चाहिए जिससे बच्चों को कोई दिशा मिले, उनके सामने लक्ष्य स्पष्ट हो। शिक्षा और जीवन के लक्ष्य में कोई भी अंतर नहीं होना चाहिए। मैं प्रारंभ कर रहा हूँ एनसीईआरटी की हिंदी की पुस्तकों से। हिंदी की जो पुस्तकें हैं, आप यदि पहली कक्षा से 12वीं कक्षा तक की सारी पुस्तकों का अवलोकन करें और उसकी समीक्षा करें तो आपको लगेगा कि वो हिंदी भाषा नहीं है। उसमें 180 शब्द ठेठ अंग्रेज़ी के हैं, 172 शब्द उर्दू के हैं। आप ये वाक्य सुनकर चौंके नहीं, 7 फारसी के शेर हैं और उसके साथ अंग्रेज़ी की एक कविता भी हिंदी की किताबों में है जिनको बच्चों ने पढ़ना है। उसके साथ इन पुस्तकों में गाली है, गलौच है, हरामज़ादा, इस प्रकार के शब्द जो कि किताबों के अंदर अंकित हैं और बच्चे उनको पढ़ते हैं। संवैधानिक शब्द जो कि जिनका प्रयोग होना चाहिए वो ना होकर भंगी, चमार ऐसे शब्दों का प्रयोग इसके अंतर्गत किया गया है। तो इस प्रकार से वे पुस्तकें जो ऊपर से मैंने अभी आपको बताया कि उसका ढांचा क्या है, उसकी संरचना क्या है, वो मैंने बताया। अभी मैं उसकी सामग्री की ओर नहीं गया हूँ। तो पहली बात तो ये है कि हिंदी को हिंदी रहने दें और हिंदी को हिंदी रहने दें और बच्चों को, क्योंकि कोई भी भाषा होती है बच्चों को श्रेष्ठ बनाती है और भाषा के माध्यम से संचार होता है, विचारों का आदान प्रदान होता है, संवाद होता है। वाद विवाद भाषा नहीं सिखाती है, परंतु इसके अंतर्गत गालियाँ हैं, गलौच हैं, जीवन की दिशा नहीं है।
राइट। Dr. Jha, do you feel then that this is an indicator of times to come, that the entire overhaul of our textbooks somehow will also push in the RSS agenda or saffronization? Do you fear that?
See, more than the fear, I have my perspective on this, and I think I would like to respond to the fears of, in fact, Mr. Datta first. He says that textbooks are full of, I mean that has been primarily his objection, that textbooks are full of English, Hindi textbooks are full of English, Farsi and Urdu lexicon. In fact, I would like to ask him, or in fact I am pondering loud, you can say that, have not we gone through several regime changes? I mean, there have been Mughals when these are merely the question of languages. the kind of different faiths, different religions. When we had a certain kind of regime, we had Britishers, we were colonized. So it can be merely seen as evolution of language, and the textbooks are nothing but the indicator of how language has evolved over the ages, from Mughals to Britishers to the present times. And in that sense, we must not categorically and kind of very vociferously attempt to have a very sanitized view of Hindi, because Hindi itself, I would like to question him that the Hindi itself, I mean, if Hindi bhasha is in question and its purification, the Shuddhatavadi angle, I think he is probably guided with. I do not object to it, but I mean merely pondering loud that where do you see, I mean, if you look at Hindi's evolution itself, Hindi is not a Puritan Puritan I would say weapon. It's not. In fact, it has itself evolved over time with lot of Urdu, Farsi and kind of it's Sanskrit words. So in fact, despite amalgamating something from here, I mean, like Gandhi said, we must keep our windows open and let the the good things must come from all the sides. So despite keeping keeping a very nationalist, which is a very, because at the end of the day, India, we are talking of in Indian context. So India is not merely a Puritan kind of Hindi version of what RSS makes us to, I would say a certain section of RSS makes us to believe. So there are different segments in RSS itself, which is trying to basically move ahead with the times. So I would say, I mean, this is merely getting stuck up with a notion and with times.
Right. Batra ji.
क्या हमारे अध्यापकों को जो हिंदी पढ़ाते हैं फारसी पढ़ाई गई है? अगर फारसी नहीं पढ़ाई गई तो 7 जो कपलेट्स फारसी के हैं वो बच्चों को किस तरीके से पढ़ाएंगे और वे जानकारी कैसे ट्रांसफ़र करेंगे?
मैं कुछ कहूँ? जी,
मैं आपकी बारी अभी हो गई।
जी, प्लीज़।
तो वो कैसे बताएंगे? इसलिए जब वो क्लास में होते हैं तो वो फारसी के शेरों को बच्चों को नहीं पढ़ा सकते, और विद्यार्थी बार बार पूछते हैं अध्यापक जी से कि जी इसका क्या अर्थ है। वो वहाँ पर बहुत ही अपने आप को छोटा महसूस करते हैं और बच्चे बहुत ही इस प्रकार से कटाक्ष करते हैं। क्या ये हिंदी की विशेषता होनी चाहिए कि उसमें गालियाँ हों, हरामज़ादा, उल्लू का पट्टा, ये सब होना चाहिए? क्या हिंदी का ये गौरव होना चाहिए कि जो संविधान के अंदर शब्द मना किए गए हैं, कानूनी तौर पर यदि उन शब्दों का प्रयोग किया जाए तो जेल होती है, तो क्या भंगी, चमार, उसकी कविताएं होनी चाहिए? अगर इस प्रकार से संवैधानिक शब्द जो कि वर्जित हैं उनका यदि प्रयोग किया जाता है तो इसका ये अर्थ होगा कि हम हिंदी को बहुत उदार मानना चाहते हैं और गांधी जी को इसलिए कोट करना चाहते हैं कि गालियाँ भी आती हैं तो भी दरवाजे खुले रखिए। तो इस प्रकार से जो अच्छाई है उस अच्छाई को ग्रहण करना अच्छी बात है, परंतु बुराई को भाषा के अंदर लाना ये उचित नहीं है, इसलिए मैंने कहा गालियाँ नहीं होनी चाहिए।
Do you believe, Batra ji, that the syllabus that we have, the CBSE textbooks, etc., are anti-national?
आई से एंटी नेशनल की बात नहीं की, मैंने कहा दिशाविहीन है। दिशाविहीन में और इस प्रकार से एंटी नेशनल में बड़ा अंतर है। क्योंकि जो करिकुलम बना था वो तो सारा देश उस समय इन्वॉल्व हुआ था और सारे देश ने इन्वॉल्व होकर के उसको बनाया था। अब उसके बाद हर 5 साल के बाद वे करिकुलम बदलना चाहिए। अब 10 साल के बाद बदल रहा है। वो जो करिकुलम बदल रहा है तो जो आज की चेंज सर्कमस्टांसेस हैं उसको ध्यान में रख करके ही बनेगा। यूनेस्को ने कहा है, यूनेस्को ने कहा है कि
Correct. So I'll just bring in another person, a young media professional. We have Vinayak Das joining us on Google Hangout. Thank you so much, Vinayak, for joining us at the conversation on India Post Live. What are your views on what the panelists in the studio are talking about?
I would like to know it from Mr. Batra, like if he is against the overuse of English into a curriculum, or is he also against what is being taught, what is the content in a textbook? Is he also against what history our students are reading or they are going through, what geography? Or I just want him to explain what exactly he feels offended of. before I make my next point.
मैंने ये कहा है कि शिक्षा हमें सभ्य बनाए, और साथ में मैंने ये कहा है कि यूनेस्को ये कहता है कि द एजुकेशन ऑफ ईच एंड एवरी कंट्री शुड बी रूटेड टू इट्स कल्चर एंड इट शुड बी वेडेड टू ग्रोथ। शिक्षा में संस्कृति और समृद्धि, शिक्षा के माध्यम से बालक जो कि देश की ग्रोथ है उसमें योगदान दें, और साथ में उनकी जो संस्कृति है उसको वो जानें, हम कितने महान थे, किस प्रकार से हमारा जीवन था, उसको वो जानें। ये शिक्षा के अंदर होना चाहिए। मैंने हिंदी की पुस्तकों के बारे में बात की, और उसमें मैंने कहा कि ऐसा नहीं है। कोई उदाहरण दे दें जो कि यहाँ पर बैठे हुए हैं कि भाई हिंदी की पुस्तकों में ये गौरव की बात है। मैं ये बताऊँगा कि हिंदी की पुस्तकों में ये बताया गया है कि हमें किस प्रकार से सुपरस्टिशियस बनना चाहिए। सांप काट गया है अगर, तो झाड़ फुंकार करने वाले के पास जाना चाहिए। किताब कहती है कि उनको कहें कि जी इसका कुछ झाड़ झंकार कर दीजिए और कुछ मंत्र बोल दीजिए ताकि इसका सांप का काटवा ख़त्म हो जाए। गधा जो है वो किसी का गुम हो जाए तो पत्नी कहती है कि आप उसके पास जाइए, वो पोथी खोल करके बता देगा, जो कि प्राचीन इस प्रकार की बनी हुई स्वभाव की बातें हैं, उनको फिर से प्रस्थापित करना ये अच्छा नहीं है। भाषा के माध्यम से जो आजकल साइंटिफिक टेम्पर है अर्थात वैज्ञानिक दृष्टिकोण है वो बालकों को देना चाहिए। तो वो गधा है जी, पोथी खोली और पोथी खोल करके बताइए कि मेरा गधा कहाँ चला गया।
Right. I get your point, Batraji. You are saying that there are certain outdated, completely unconstitutional language, words and syllabi which needs to be updated with the changing times. Vinayak, you have a point there?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, words are there in every language. Like he mentioned the word haramzada. So can we say that haramzada is non-existent in Hindi? If a child will not read it from a book, he'll get to know about it from some other language. Either you discard that word, you cannot discard a word. And he's saying like gadha and pothi and all these things, they are part of a story. They are part of different stories that have been narrated by our respected writers. You cannot opt to not to take those stories, because see, we cannot move ahead with such an approach. Either we need to have a concrete approach at all. If they are against something, they need to provide an alternate plan for it. Like, what do they suggest? Mr. Batra has only criticized whatever is in our education system. He hasn't provided what is the alternative. I just want to know the alternative, then only we can move on further for the debate.
Batraji, would you like to respond?
अब अल्टरनेटिव की बात कर रहे हैं। मैं ये कहता हूँ कि पहले गंदगी को ज़रा साफ कर लें, उसकी जगह पर अच्छाई को प्रस्थापित करें। गंदगी ये कहती है कि सर्व शिक्षा अभियान में हर बालिका को, हर बालक को विद्यालय में होना चाहिए। RTE बना, राइट टू एजुकेशन, उसमें ये कहा गया कि 6 साल के बच्चे को विद्यालय में जाना चाहिए। ये कविता कहती है, पहली क्लास की कविता, 6 साल की छोकरी भर कर लाई आम की टोकरी, गली गली में घूमती, ले लो आम ले लो आम, मैं आई हूँ बेचने आम। तो क्या ये पढ़ाया जाना चाहिए? और जो कि कानून के खिलाफ है और जो कि सर्व शिक्षा अभियान के खिलाफ है। देश में जो शिक्षा का एक वातावरण बन रहा है कि बच्चों को स्कूल में जाना चाहिए, उसके खिलाफ
Contradictory. Right.
Vinayak,
I'll just come to you.
Just one point. I just want to say, like he is saying that एक छोकरी बेचे फलों की टोकरी. Is it not happening in our society? If we don't tell a child in form of a poem, whether she or he will not get to know about it. It's happening. Our education system is a reflection of our society.
I would like to respond.
Whether
Yes,
you
Dr.
tell them or you don't tell them, they'll get to know about it.
Right, Vinayak, you've made your point. Dr. Savita Jha has...
Vinayak, in fact, I would like to respond to him. Vinayak, in fact, what Mr. Datta is trying to say, Mr. Batra, I'm sorry, is trying to, in fact, that through this textbook, a certain idea or a certain image or a certain picture of, which is very, very gendered, on gendered lines is basically getting reinforced.
Yes.
Because a chokri is supposed to sell aam only at the age of 6, whereas the right picture, what we call right picture, should be that, that chokri is also going to school, to get education. I think he before quoting this aam ki chokri, he talked of RTE, right to education. and also the fact that how nation is being imagined, you know. A nation is basically, I think there you were right, that we cannot be having very sanitized worldview, or you know, kind of even, you know,
Detached from reality.
yeah, detached from reality, you know, a domain which is very sanitized, where we keep away the words. But I think I not totally but partially in agreement with Mr. Batra, where he says basically that these words, there is a sanctity of textbooks. You know, what is the reality, how do we get education? I mean, there are 3-4 things which we are discussing. One is the textbooks, one is the education system, the way, third thing is the way we perceive education itself, and the fourth thing is nation. Fine. So here I think he is right to the extent where he is actually trying to discuss that at least textbooks should be sanitized to some extent, where, you know, unparliamentary words. I know we all are aware of our social realities, we all are aware of, I think there I would counter him where Bhangi Chamari he mentioned that probably, you know, the social realities of our nation has been, you know, kind of partially ignored. Not partially, I mean, to a larger extent it has been ignored. And if these words are coming into through some poetry or some prose, I think there is a valid reason for, because a person coming from that section of society cannot basically, you know, write a prose or a poetry which is devoid of certain terms, you know. So there I think I have an objection with Mr. Batra, but I think Chokri thing he was right.
Dr. Jha, also the new Union HRD Minister Smriti Irani has also come up with a proposal that she wants more Hindu texts which reflect the Upanishads, the Veds in the 8th, 9th and 10th class to be, you know, further inculcated and propagated through our syllabus. What is your take on that?
I in fact, for one, would like to agree with Ms. Irani, where I think that Upanishads, the Vedas, in fact, it has nothing to do with a Hindu worldview only. You know, this is, I think there are a lot of lapsations, you know, there are a lot of, in fact, gaps, the way we perceive Hindu nation, Hinduized nation, Islamic nation, and the, you know, with the current nation, in fact. I think Smriti is talking from, you know, today's worldview, where she feels that probably a certain section of knowledge has been ignored, or probably, you know, has been kept at a back burner. You know, there I think I agree with, because I have been actually, you know, talking about a lot about regional languages, because Sanskrit is a huge language. It has you know, very illustrious history. It cannot be basically, you know, kind of completely put at the back burner, because just because, you know, certain government or certain power construct has a certain agenda. I mean, if it has been put on the back burner because of some agenda, I think if she is trying to talking of, at least not trying, now talking of reviving the Vedas, I mean, what's the harm?
But as a parent, probably, do you feel that, you know, parents who are actually of a minority or are not able to be aware of Upanishads or Vedas or cannot connect to it, will not be able to, you know, actually identify with what is being taught in school textbooks for a child who comes from a Christian background or a Muslim background, you know, or a Zoroastrian background. They will not be able to connect to it. And why not introduce Urdu, you know, then in our schools? Then why not, you know, talk about Urdu literature also in our
No, I'm not opposing that either. But what I'm saying, like, for example, we read in our English, what we read in our nursery, you know, take for example nursery rhymes, little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet. Do we understand this tuffet? I mean, there are a lot of things. If you have to object, I mean, the objection has to be in totality, where we are objecting to a lot of, you know, out of sync things, which are basically not our, I mean, I totally felt at loss when I had to read that, you know, I mean, several, I mean, right now it's not coming to my mind, but the nursery rhymes, you know, it starts from there, you know, so colonial hangover is there, you know, we are basically, when we read English is, you know, the way we are trying to connect. It's sort of compulsion which is there. It's not in sync with our social realities. So I'm sure, you know, the Zoroastrian or Christian, or, you know, because now at present, you know, however urban or cosmopolitan I try to be, I want to make my children, there are certain things, you know, when my child actually talks while reading English textbooks, she talks of a certain cuisine, you know, which is totally European and English in character. I fail to understand what she is talking about, because what we eat at home is completely in, you know, kind of at variance with what she is talking about. So I think there has been a lot of compulsion where, you know, we have been
westernization,
you know,
has had
indoctrinated
to be.
with a lot of things which is not in sync with. So I think inclusion should be there of whatever kind. Yeah.
Right. Vinayak, you want to make a point here?
Just wanted to make a point, like ma'am was saying like we should go back to Vedas, or Smriti Irani was trying to inculcate like
Not go
our
back.
Hindu history.
Go
So
forth.
I'll refer it to Smriti Irani that we should inculcate the Hindu history. See, if we can compare the NCERT textbooks of the previous NDA government to that of the UPA government. If we'll compare like the textbooks between 1998 to 2004 or 2003 or late 2003, they had a at large description of Harshvardhan, Gupta Empire, and Arab Hut and all that. Yes, their space shrinked when UPA textbooks came, but that was not. But to the flip side of it, Mughals did better for India. No, they played, their role was more significant than those Gupta, hello, than those Gupta rulers. So that can be my personal
Right,
view,
right.
but you cannot play with the history in such a manner.
Right, right. Batra ji.
जो स्मृति रानी ने कहा है मैं उससे सहमत नहीं हूँ,
Okay.
क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट का निर्णय है और वो है अरुणा राय एंड अदर्स। उन्होंने कहा है कि जितने भी मज़हब हैं, धर्म हैं, उन सब की अच्छी बातें
Exactly.
बच्चों को पढ़ानी चाहिए। वास्तव में आइडियल यही है, शिक्षा में अगर मूलचूल परिवर्तन करना है तो इसलिए सभी धर्मों की, सभी मज़हबों की जो अच्छी अच्छी बातें हैं इस देश में बच्चों को पढ़ानी चाहिए। दूसरी बात यह है कि जो एंशिएंट विजडम है, वी शुड मॉडर्नाइज दैट एंशिएंट विजडम। जो प्राचीन ज्ञान विज्ञान है उसका हमें आधुनिकरण करना चाहिए, पाश्चात्यकरण नहीं करना चाहिए। तो आधुनिकरण करने से अर्थ यह है कि हमें देयर शुड बी इंटेग्रेशन ऑफ एंशिएंट एंड मॉडर्न विजडम। दोनों ही इस प्रकार की जो प्रतिभाएं हैं, योग्यताएं, अच्छाइयाँ हैं, उनको इंटेग्रेट करके बच्चों के सामने रखना चाहिए। हम जब प्राचीन की बात करते हैं तो एक बार ये ध्यान में आ जाते हैं, ये परंपरावादी हैं, ये पुरातन पंथी हैं, ये पोथा पंथी हैं। और जब हम इस प्रकार से आधुनिक की बात करते हैं तो कहते हैं आधुनिकरण के नाम पर ये पाश्चात्यकरण कर रहे हैं, ये मकालियन हो रहा है। और इसके साथ साथ ये केवल मकालियन ही नहीं, अपितु ये साम्यवादीकरण भी हो रहा है, ऐसा लोग कहते हैं। वास्तव में जो बालक है वो राष्ट्रीय विषय है। एक बात जो कि विशेष रूप से मैं कहना चाहता हूँ और वो ये है कि जब सरकारें बदलती हैं तो शिक्षा बदलती है, नहीं बदलनी चाहिए। मेरा कहना ये है कि देयर शुड बी नो पॉलिटिक्स इन द फील्ड ऑफ एजुकेशन, बट देयर शुड बी एजुकेशन इन द फील्ड ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स।
Okay.
और वे शिक्षा को राष्ट्रीय विषय बना करके जितने भी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज़ हैं उनको एक साथ बैठना चाहिए और बैठ करके ये निर्णय करना चाहिए कि बच्चा देश का है, राष्ट्र का है, इसलिए इसको राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा दी जाए। और वो कुठारी कमीशन ने कहा है जो वो 4 ही इस प्रकार के बिंदु को लेकर के शिक्षा दी जाए तो मूलचूल परिवर्तन हो जाएगा। उन्होंने कहा है पैट्रियटिज्म, हेल्थ केयर, सोशल कॉन्शियसनेस एंड स्पिरिचुअलिज्म शुड बी पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ आवर एजुकेशन।
Right.
तो इस प्रकार की शिक्षा जो है वो मूल्य आधारित शिक्षा होनी चाहिए,
Right.
आध्यात्मिकरण शिक्षा का होना चाहिए, स्वास्थ्य की शिक्षा होनी चाहिए, शारीरिक शिक्षा होनी चाहिए। ये कोर करिकुलम है, कोर सब्जेक्ट्स हैं जो कि हर बच्चे को पढ़ना
But
चाहिए।
Batra ji, besides the textbooks or whatever content is in the Hindi textbooks, beyond that, the Shiksha Sanskriti Utthan Nyas is actually saying that we need to have an institutional reform in the way our education system is, our textbooks and curriculum is taught, and you know what the content is. But don't you feel that spiritualism is a very broad topic? Who will define it?
I define it. I am here to define it. That has been defined by Swami Vivekananda. Vivekananda says कि जो भी किसी भी की सेवा करता है, किसी गरीब की सेवा करता है तो मंदिर में जाने के समान है। और उन्होंने यहाँ तक कहा कि इफ़ ए डॉग इन माई कंट्री इज़ हंग्री आई डोंट वांट मोक्ष। मोक्ष हाईएस्ट लेडर है स्पिरिचुअलिज्म का, वो मुझे नहीं चाहिए। इस देश में कोई भूखा रहता है, कुत्ता भी, उस कि पहले भूख मिटाना, सेवा करना, इसलिए उनका ये शब्द है वो स्पष्ट करता है कि आध्यात्मिकता क्या है, नर सेवा नारायण सेवा। तो भगवान की सेवा का मतलब नर की सेवा है, पड़ोस की सेवा है, और जो आंखों में आंसू लिए है उसके आंखों में पहुंचने में को ही आध्यात्मिकता कहते हैं।
Similar thinking is of Gautam Buddha. Dr. Jha, wouldn't you like to elaborate on the fact that even Gautam Buddha, the enlightened one, has spoken about spiritualism? Why not include his teachings? Why only Swami Vivekananda?
No, I think he's not talking of only Vivekananda. I think I have a little problem with this either or. You know, why not? I mean, it must be inclusive in nature, and there I think, you know, because we must not forget that India and you know, the present India at present is very vibrant, and it's very conscious. It's in fact very alert, the way we speak, the way we think, the way we are trying to impose certain things. So, to expect that whatever we are basically going to thrust upon them, they would be accepting as it is not going to happen. Fine. So, keeping that in mind, keeping the pulse of the nation and the youth in mind, because I think the maximum population is in an age bracket which is very young.
Yes.
So, keeping that in mind, their retaliation, their acceptance, their accommodation in mind, we must not forget that it must be inclusive. Fine. Spiritualism, as you said, I think it's a very vague domain. I mean, it's something which
it's open to
is
interpretation.
It's open to interpretation. It's not only that. I mean,
very personal,
it's very personal. It's subjective. You know, people might have, I think, 1,000 definitions of how spiritualism is being. It's very personal at the end of the day. So, in that case, you know, it's going to be very contentious.
Yes.
An issue to be brought upon. But then, you know, it depends. And I would also like to clarify, when I try to defend Ms. Irani's this Upanishada Veda project, there I never said that, you know, I am trying to defend her just because I consider that Hindu, because I consider that a vast knowledge domain which must not be ignored just because it is coming from a certain era which is being branded by certain people as being Hindu. Okay. This is my problem, fine. So, you know, there is a lot of branding, there are a lot of tags which are going around, and this is why we have problem with probably most of the valid things even.
Right.
So, that was my advocacy for Ms.
Very
Irani.
interesting,
Yeah.
very interesting. I'll just bring in one final view from Vinayak. The conversation will continue, but Vinayak, your final view.
Yeah, just 20 seconds. I just wanted to say, in our inclusive history textbooks, there is no space for the tribal. We have the beginning from the early history, beginning from Ashoka, Buddha, via Aryabhat, Harshvardhan to the Mughals. We are studying the Aryan history, the tribals who were the original residents of the geographical place. They don't find their place or relevant place or enough space in our history books. If they are going to reform our education system, kindly get some space for them also. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll thank Vinayak. Batraji, before you answer Vinayak's question and his concerns, Wendy Doniger book. The Wendy Doniger.
अभी तो हम जो चर्चा करने के लिए बैठे हैं वो चर्चा है एनसीईआरटी बुक्स के बारे में।
Okay,
पहले
then
वो
you can
समाप्त
reply
करें।
to him, yes.
एनसीईआरटी की जो बुक्स हैं, अब स्पिरिचुअलिज्म शब्द बहुत ही सुंदर ढंग से डिफाइंड है सुप्रीम कोर्ट के निर्णय में। धर्माधिकारी जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जज हैं, उन्होंने इस पर एक किताब लिखी है पूरी, वैल्यूज़ एंड एजुकेशन, और साथ में उन्होंने स्पिरिचुअलिज्म को डिफाइन किया है। उन्होंने रिलीजन को और धर्म को डिफाइन किया है। रिलीजन इज़ वे ऑफ वर्शिप, जहाँ मर्जी जाइए, आप मस्जिद में जाएं, मंदिर में जाएं और गिरजाघर में जाएं, एंड धर्म इज़ योर वे ऑफ लाइफ, जीवन जीने का ढंग। अब फिर आप कहेंगे ये जीवन जीने का ढंग क्या है? जीवन जीने का ढंग वो है जो किसी को कष्ट नहीं दे। इसको कहते हैं परहित सरस धर्म नहीं को। इससे बढ़कर के कोई धर्म नहीं है जिससे दूसरे का भला हो। अब ये बात जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कही है, तो स्पिरिचुअलिज्म तो एकदम बहुत ही सरल शब्दों में डिफाइन हो गया। अगर हम सबको ये कहें कि भाई दूसरे का हित करो भाई, दूसरे का भला करो भाई, सर्वत्र भला गुरु नानक देव जी कहते हैं, अन्य भी सब कहते हैं। तो इस प्रकार से हम स्पिरिचुअलिज्म को इतना गूढ़ मत बनाएं और इतना जटिल मत बनाएं।
मैं सिर्फ कंसेंसस की बात कर रही हूँ।
कंसेंस, हम दोनों तो सहमत हो जाएं, कंसेंसस हो जाएगी। तो वो स्पिरिचुअलिज्म जो है वो दूसरे का भला करना, ये स्पिरिचुअलिज्म है।
Right.
अब दूसरी बात, उन्होंने इतिहास की बात कही, अब मैं हिंदी छोड़ रहा हूँ, इतिहास की बात कर।
Right.
इतिहास जो कि पहले था अब बदला है। इसलिए बदला है कि मैं हाई कोर्ट में गया था। हाई कोर्ट में इतिहास पर 75 मेरे ऑब्जेक्शंस थे और हाई कोर्ट ने मेरे से सहमत होकर वो 75 पोर्शंस निकाल दिए थे। और अर्जुन सिंह जो उस समय मिनिस्टर थे,
HRD
उन्होंने पत्र लिखा था एनसीईआरटी को, वो पत्र मेरे पास है कि कोई भी इस प्रकार के ऑब्जेक्शनेबल पोर्शंस जो कि मिस्टर बत्रा ने उठाए हैं वो एनसीईआरटी की किताबों में नहीं आने चाहिए। लेकिन वो तो चले गए, लेकिन वो चीज़ें फिर से आ रही हैं। हिस्ट्री बुक्स में क्या था, ये था कि आर्य लोग जब उनके पास कोई आते थे विशेष अतिथि,
Right.
उनको गौ मांस देते थे। हवन जब होता था तो वो स्त्रियों को दक्षिणा में देते थे। गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी मुगलों के दरबार में मनसब थे। गुरु तेग बहादुर वॉज मर्डर एंड रैपिंग। और इसी के साथ जो भी हमारे क्रांतिकारी हुए हैं वो सब आतंकवादी थे, भगत सिंह, वीर सावरकर इत्यादि। वे सारे पोर्शंस उन्होंने निकाल दिए। शांति भूषण जी उनके वकील थे एनसीईआरटी के।
But the point is the larger, the crux of the matter is
पॉइंट तो ये है कि भाई एनसीईआरटी की पुस्तकों में हिस्ट्री को किस तरीके से बर्बाद किया गया। हिस्ट्री का अर्थ ये होता है, इतिहास का मतलब ऐसा निश्चित से हुआ जो हुआ ही नहीं, उसको बता देना। औरंगजेब जिंदा पीर थे और शिवाजी लुटेरे थे। हाउ इज इट?
right. But sir, if before you go, it's your outfit that has raised objections, and also the banning of the book, Wendy Doniger's book. You know, it shows that your outfit does not allow any other alternative ideology or interpretation of Hinduism.
High Court allows it. I am not Batra. High Court says, Supreme Court says, I went to Supreme Court against Delhi University, A.K. Ramanujan Lake, और सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज़ डिसाइडेड इन माय फेवर, जिसमें ये पढ़ाया जाता था हिस्ट्री डिपार्टमेंट में कि हनुमान वॉज ए टाइनी मंकी एंड ही वॉज वोमनाइजर। इज इट सो? बट इट वॉज बीइंग टॉट इन हिस्ट्री डिपार्टमेंट। तो अब ये जो है इसको आप कहेंगे कि भाई एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ फ्रीडम है। एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ फ्रीडम 19 ये कहता है कि देयर शुड बी एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ फ्रीडम बट विद सर्टन रिस्ट्रिक्शंस। दिस इज अ रिस्ट्रिक्शन कि भाई आप ऐसी बातें पढ़ा रहे हैं जो हैं नहीं।
Dr. Savitaja, your rebuttal, if at all, to what he's saying?
See, if I have to basically, I mean, there are too many things which are coming to mind right now. In fact, the way education as a paradigm has moved, I would like to talk about that. You know, there are Shiksha Karmis, there are educational activists like Mr. Batra, who has been probably, you know, kind of keeping himself you know, kind of attuned with what is being done, and then he, you know, tries to read them. He has a perspective and then he tries to build up on them, and then what he finds objectionable, I think he tries to go through them through, you know, judiciary. There are certain section of people, educationists, I believe largely, while framing the curriculum are not taking his point into account, you know, because I think there are several cocoons which are building up in different corners. And then there are people at large, those who are not educated at all, playing in the hands of what we call hardliners, political hardliners. So I think there is a complete clash of interest of the education activists like Mr. Batra, the curriculum framers, and the people at large, those who actually are not aware of how it is being done, what is going on, and then they try to you know, retort and resort to certain, you know, practices which is actually not very healthy for a kind of environment which is open to, you know, dissent.
Right.
So I think that is my problem. Otherwise, I think all kinds of dissent should come up, and then you know, there should be a consensus, though that is a, you know, kind of. And then we should not be naive enough that politics would not have a, you know, in fact, Mr. Batra had a very healthy line when he said that politics, that there should be no politics in education, rather education should be in politics. But I think then we are talking of an ideal.
Exactly.
You know, the reality is that we must not be naive to disbelieve or, you know, disagree to the extent that politics has there been, because education has been a domain which you know, which is actually where politics has been a patronizing body.
Right.
So education has been patronized by several regimes, and as per their imagination, their imageries, their symbols,
agenda.
their agenda, what they thought right, what they thought wrong, have been basically trying to salvage, I would use salvage education as per their thinking, their thought processes, which has been a problem because with the current government, probably the things which have been done till now would not have been done rightly.
Okay.
So I think there would be changes.
So on that note, questions are being raised. We are absolutely running out of time, but the conversation will continue on our Twitter handle @IndiaPostLive and our website indiapostlive.com. We of course want participants. Your audio and video comments, do post them on our website and take forward this interesting and engaging and a very contentious issue. What happens then to the parents, to the children who are actually going to be absorbing, are going to be actually learning the various kind of changes as per regime or political agenda that come through, that seeps in through our NCERT and our education system, our school curriculum, of course, going through a lot of changes. Is it really reform? Is it really revamp? You ask and you answer this question and put in your views. You can contact our panelists here in the studio and make it a very healthy and lively discussion on our Twitter handle @IndiaPostLive. I thank both our guests. Of course, we've run out of time, but the conversation will continue. I thank Dr. Savita Jah Khan and also Mr. Dinanath Batra and Vinayak Dutt for various kind of views being exchanged here. The question remains, what happens next in our NCERT syllabi and our school curriculum? A lot of eyebrows being raised and we'll discuss it further. A lot more interesting discussion and conversations coming up on India Post Live. Stay tuned. Goodbye. Thank you.